is Matori again. Thank you so much for checking out our number 6 video. I'm working on my layout. I'm going to be projecting my images here, I think, so it's not too overwhelming. But again, thank you so much. It's Friday. We went out door knocking today, amongst other days, but I just wanted to give a shout out to Leary, Jay, Michelle, and of course Mark for helping us set up everything to get us back on track. I love door knocking. As I said before, I was a field organizer. I've been a campaign manager, so it's really fun to be a candidate. Very few candidates have ran campaigns. Very few campaign managers have become candidates. And so I think just being able to appreciate all sides of it just kind of gives me that extra, like, I guess, knowledge base. So speaking of which, something that came up a couple times yesterday at the forum, two things really sort of resonated with me, amongst the fact that it was the first time we all were in the same sort of room, which was just amazing, as I said before. But also, Kwesi and Fume, God bless the man. Both Kwesi and Fume and Maya Rocketmore Cummings are considered like the establishment candidates. That means that 22 other Democrat candidates are running for, again, there's only one Democrat who can win that nomination, and then one Republican can win our nomination. And so being a part of politics for as long as I have been, it feels long. I know other people have been involved way longer than I have, but I don't know, seeing how the sausage is made is like out of my mind. It blows your mind. I commend them all for running, but I also feel for them. I feel really sad that, knowing how particularly that Democratic Party works, people say it's a lost cause for us Republicans to run, which I don't quite think that's accurate for our particular race because of how we've sort of gone through the entire gamut, and it's all been for real time, and people are sort of been a part of the change that I've gone through since 2015. I had to count that out. I used to say over 3 years now. Fast forward, we're already into my 6th year. So time has gone, man, like, golly. So anywho, going back to the whole idea of Kwesi and Cummings, you know, either of them may win or another challenge candidate. But again, from that field, who is that one person that's going to make the difference? And when Kwesi and Maya were speaking, again, it was almost like, the word robot's not the right word, but that's the word that comes out of my head. Sorry to say. But, you know, their answers were very robotic, very like, this is what you're supposed to answer for this, and this is, in order to affect this response, say this. And it really sort of the message of like, I can do this from day one, I'm ready day one, really reminds me of business school. So I finished business school the first year I ran for office, so I graduated from Maryland in 2014. So I would say going to business school and being now a business-minded individual really helped me appreciate the process more. If I had stopped at law school, I probably would still be a liberal, because again, you're thinking from one side of your head, and then again, you don't need grad school, but it just happened to be my life, more than half my life being in school. It is what it is. But anyway, if you'd stopped at law school, you'd think, oh, you know, constitutional law, da 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 da. But with business school, you have sort of the world, sort of more of a 360 approach to what you're witnessing. And so the two classes that I loved throughout my, I guess, educational career, in law school, it was Antitrust, which is kind of weird, but I really loved Antitrust. Professor Gavel was my professor, and he ended up working for, I don't know if he worked for the FTC, but anyway, he was one of those guys who was an expert in that field. And the other class that I loved in business school was change management. So I've been applying that sort of mindset about having competition and how competition is healthy for a ecosystem, if you will, whether it's business or now politics. I think that's the reason why I'm so passionate about dismantling the monopoly. Now, some will argue that it's a duopoly, where there's two parties that are, running things, and I'll put the definition of a duopoly is an oligopoly limited to two sellers. So again, I know these words are sort of business focused, but if you apply it to, having a product and then having consumers, voters are consumers, the product is the candidate, right? That's basically what it is, right? Everything's marketing, everything's, you have a product or a service that you're providing to the marketplace. This is basically what we're doing in politics. But in our system, we have two parties, like two companies. And so just like in the business setting, we see the negative impact of two or even fewer companies that take over the marketplace. They can set the prices, they can sort of limit your options, if you will, as consumers and or constituents and or voters. And that's what we've been seeing throughout time. So being an MBA and being sort of a business-minded person now, I'm seeing it in real time, and I'm like, oh my gosh, this is what we were talking about, in business school. This is what's not supposed to happen. Why are we letting this happen? And you're like, golly, I mean, it is very frustrating to see that, the application that we have in business, people balk at that when you try to apply it in politics. And so my several different campaigns have sort of been very organic, but it is, again, God-led. And so there's this idea of me learning more things, being exposed to more voters. I literally have ran through 8 different counties while running for state delegate and or Congress. So that's half the state of Maryland that I have connected to voters over the last 7 years. And that really sort of honor and appreciation for the constituency is that's the reason why I continue to do what I do. So with that oligopoly, which is, again, the definition is a market situation in which each of the few producers affects but does not control the market. Okay, that technically is not the right term because they are controlling the market. So what do you do, when you have more of the parties, like the Green Party or the Libertarians, or being unaffiliated like I was for 6 months, or, the bread and chocolate, not bread and chocolate, not Guns and Roses, but the other party that is official in the state of Maryland, it's very hard to enter that way. And so again, we did that in 2015. We ran as an independent campaign. We collect signatures through Montgomery, Frederick, and Carroll for 6 straight months. I had no intention of joining the Republican Party until January of 2016. And so when you see how you can't affect the change that way, then sort of my spirit sort of moved me, or the spirit moved me to push further and further. And so to be a conservative Republican now, and then listen, this is where circular reasoning, getting back to what I was going to say at the forum, when Kwesi and Fume and Maya Rockmore Cummings are speaking, I want folks to pay attention to what they're saying. They are not offering leadership. They're offering management. And again, MBAs sort of and business people understand what I'm saying, but I'm trying to take those lessons learned from my MBA and applying it to politics. I never quite articulated what I was raging against. And to hear them, to see them real time last night, and to look back and to see all of the really frustrated voters behind me, it just really sort of clarified what we're up against. So Kwesi, straight up, he was like, oh, I've been in the private sector for 23 years, but I was a congressman for 15 years prior to, so vote for me again. And you're like, that is a case for not voting for you. Like, I don't understand how someone like that doesn't have the sort of wherewithal to understand that time literally has passed. And I'm not saying that people in his generation can't lead. Of course they can lead, but the way that he speaks and what he's trying to do, he's offering management. He's not offering leadership. Same thing with Maya. I mean, literally, you just grow the hair out, make that person a woman, and you get Maya. There's literally not that much difference between the two of them, and I think that's the reason why they're frustrated with each other, because they're literally running against each other, offering the exact same thing. The affiliation to Elijah Cummings, even though she was married. Whoa, let's talk about that. That was like, God bless her. I wish her well. She's in mourning. We all are in mourning, but she should be respected in that respect. But can you imagine being the widow of the person who just died in office and 23 other people, like 23 other people, don't think you're the right person for the position? That's pretty much what they're saying. And her running against the 23 other people, she's saying, I deserve this because I'm his wife, his widow, and therefore you owe it to me. That's pretty much what the voters are seeing. Like, I'm glad I'm on this side, but I just really wanted to talk to you about what's all about. But so I don't know if you can see this, but John Cotter is the leading writer, or I guess expert on change management. So I'm going back to business school, and pretty much breaks down the difference between management and leadership in his book. What is this? Leading Change. I think this is his second. He has other books about it, but the fundamental difference between management and leadership is that management is using established detailed steps to achieve a result, and you're organizing the structure that's already in place, and you're problem solving within what you already have, pretty much. Leadership is establishing direction, aligning people, and motivating and inspiring them to affect change, to have an influence, to push coalitions. And leadership is actually the harder thing to do. And it sort of also goes to show you how difficult what we're doing, all of us candidates, what we're trying to do in this special election. It's easier to manage, it's harder to lead. And when you lead through change, massive change like what we're seeing now, like Cotter says, it can be very painful. There is a lot of resistance to that unless you have the right leaders in place. And whether it's Congress, whether it's the city of Baltimore, whether it's any of the counties in the state of Maryland, whether it's Maryland, etc., even our governor, he used the word change, Maryland, in his pre-campaign campaign. Now, note about Hogan. The way that Hogan applies his change works perfectly well to be a governor of Maryland. I would argue, going back to Kwasi's case for going back to Congress, we all know that Congress is way, 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 way different than 24 years ago. 24 years ago, I was 16 years old. Put that into context. I'm turning 40 February 11th. So I'm already 40. I don't feel 40, but that's what my number's going to be. I don't know how old Kwesi and Fume is. How old is the population, literally, of our country? The millennial generation now is the largest generation. People under the age of 50 outnumber the group above. That's just the natural sort of state of things. How is he going to show, either he or Rocketmore Cummings, how are they going to lead an entire group of people who they have no connection to fundamentally? Voters literally need to answer that. And again, if you feel awkward about the change, there's a reason. This is a huge shift. And we have to send a congresswoman to Congress to represent our gerrymandered District 7, rural, suburban, and urban enclaves, all of it, who literally has been doing this for 7 years. This is the only way you're going to address and be able to fight through what we are dealing with in Congress. It's the only way. I mean, unless you want status quo, unless you just want to manage the corruption that's already in place. Those are your options. Do you lead or do you manage? And they're offering management, and we're offering leadership. That's what we do. What number are we on? I think we're almost close to our time, and I gotta invest in a bigger timer. Sorry.